The Corporal and Lance Corporal Harry get on pretty well together.
Hey!
Prince Harry is less extrovert, but like Prince William, he's a keen para. He's getting into training looking after his uniform.
Harry and Meghan have fled the firm, and the media just can't stand it. Let's take a look.
Break it down!
While we're going through a global pandemic and the numbers have passed or surpassed 100,000, and there's growing evidence that this government has been more concerned with profiteering rather than practical solutions, and while at the same time the Queen's husband is in hospital undergoing surgery for a heart condition at the age of 99, our mainstream media seems more concerned with its ongoing obsession with Harry and Meghan.
If you're the one who reveals such an intimate, private moment.
They don't want to be entirely private. They just want the coverage to be less toxic.
How can you? No,
there is a difference.
No, they don't.
As they call it, Megxit, whose absconsion from public life and the perceived privilege that goes along with royalty has really got them irritated.
I think that's called duty. You know, you get all the baubles, you get all the castles, the palaces, the servants, the trinkets, you get the first-class travel, you get all that kind of...
No more so than Piers Morgan, who's got an exceptional obsession.
I literally do have a negative filter.
You do.
You know why?
Because you're obsessed with them.
With getting them excommunicated from the royal family.
I don't see how you think you have more authority than the Queen.
As he sees Prince Harry's apparent removal from public life as some sort of war crime, and feels there's no reasonable punishment other than banishment.
Go away, it should shut up.
As if that's really something that could ever happen or would.
Whether or not Prince Harry resigns from the royal family, he is not living a life of public service.
He believes if they were to retreat from public life, then they shouldn't be able to profit from it.
These two want to have their royal cake and eat it.
Which is clearly deluded. Now, he's not the only one, even if he is probably the most prominent one. As our mainstream media has pursued an agenda against Harry and Meghan for the longest time now. As on one hand, Harry has married what the establishment would call out of his race.
They don't like us, you know, love. They have a different set of values.
And to a different aristocracy. And on the other hand, he is the spare to an heir who has had what you could call a fractured relationship with our establishment press.
Unfortunately, every single story was complete lies.
While at the same time, there's a curious absence of reporting around Prince Andrew, the other spare to an heir, whose relationship with Jeffrey Epstein is very questionable. Though it's been over a year now since Harry decided to take a step back from royal duties and move out of the country, the media's protestations have erupted into overdrive yet again, as Harry appeared recently on James Corden's TV show.
The very house that Will Smith turns up to is good enough for the Fresh Prince, it's good enough for a real prince.
And with the two of them having appeared on Oprah Winfrey in an Oprah Winfrey interview this past Sunday, where to no one's surprise it was revealed that the Queen's Germanic royal hereditary bloodline is instinctly racist.
So we do know that Princess Michael of Kent, whose father was an SS cavalry officer, wore a blackface brooch, an Orinoco brooch, for the first time she went to meet Meghan Markle. So that's how racist they are. They have racist accessories.
As just over 100 years ago, this country, were at war with Germany, whose ruler was the grandson of Queen Victoria, and our present Queen's father, or grandfather at the time, changed the royal family's German-sounding name from Saxe Coburg Gotha to Windsor, so that they could, distance themselves from their German heritage. Also, with that, the recent news that the Queen has taken away some of his royal patronage, as that has added fuel to this as well.
Do you really believe I would have a run our family business, Randolph? Of course not. Neither would I.
It is no surprise that Harry and Meghan want to move away due to the racist overtones.
I think that it's definitely racialised when we are talking about Meghan specifically and her proximity to blackness, because her mum is a black woman.
What is surprising, though, is they want to move to the US to escape this racism, as well as the pressure and the intrusions of our establishment press.
How does that sit, Harry, with you? Mr. Privacy, who's about to spill all the beans in his normal whiny way about his family, as your grandfather lies seriously in hospital.
As much of the coverage around Meghan has been similar to that his mother endured.
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Clearly, he senses that he wants to remove himself as far away from this scenario as possible.
Meghan and Harry escaped the aristocracy. What they've done is that they've escaped the British aristocracy, which is deeply feudal, deeply old-fashioned, wedded to systems of hierarchy, which you cannot separate from white supremacy.
As we all know how that one played out. Along with that, he's seen firsthand what we all know has been systematic racist coverage of his wife, and even amongst his own family.
Concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What?
Who might have more things to worry about. Though no publication has openly been racist in print.
A lot of people I've heard say, well, we didn't even know that Meghan was black. We're not racist.
The issue with...
As that would be obvious and illegal. But what they have done here is played into certain cultural stereotypes. When reporting about her. The recent case of bullying royal staff is a perfect example of this.
And the whole bullying thing, whether these accusations are true or not, these accusations were from 3 years ago, and it's only now they're suddenly deciding to release that information and do an investigation.
As that has been framed as her being difficult to work for.
We know that the stereotype that's often afforded or inflicted upon black women is the angry black woman stereotype. Black women are seen as aggressive and intimidating. And so that same narrative is being used for her in this case.
As if being in service to any of these royals is associated with them treating their staff as equals.
Oh, budge up, budge up.
How dare you sit, sir, in the presence of your betters? Get up!
Oh, Christ, yes, I forgot.
You speak when you're spoken to! Unless you'd rather be flayed across a gun carriage? Well...
Basically, they want people generally to lean into the underlying biases they may have.
You cannot deny the racial overtones of the reporting. The headline, almost straight out of Compton. She's from nowhere near Compton. And that is just harks to hood and ghetto and gangs and stuff like that. These kind of things that they were putting into people's minds.
And they have been trained by the very same media. There is a threat of contamination to our establishment.
Do you really believe I would have a run our family business, Randolph? Of course not. Neither would I.
Also, the coverage of our pregnancy could be considered cruel or unsympathetic.
Baby compared to a baby chimp, and when people like me said that was a racist joke, then people like you said that wasn't racist.
Danny Baker was a BBC broadcaster who said, and I have no reason to disbelieve him, he had no idea about the background to Meghan Markle.
When in general, the reporting about Kate has been... Well, there's been an atmosphere of sycophantic bootlicking, which has been overwhelming. Again, when you compare a lot of the headlines between Meghan and Kate, when the story is similar, there's a chasm of disparity, in my opinion. But we shouldn't be surprised by this, as the mainstream media consider themselves the gatekeepers to the protection of the purity of our royal hereditary bloodline.
It's crass beyond belief. It's just, I'm sorry, people know my views. I find it utterly nauseating. I think it's going to be extremely bad for this country.
They generally set the code-defining criteria for what it is to be pure.
Because your brother stayed here in the pandemic and has done a fantastic job, frankly. Him and his wife and the other senior royals in that pandemic.
And clearly Meghan doesn't fit that.
And a mixed race woman with a black mother to enter those royal spaces. And I'm not just talking about how she might have been treated.
Also, her recent win against the Daily Mail in a High Court decision about the letters they published that she sent to her father. This has shown them this has shown the establishment press that she has a lot of power in her own right. And they sure as hell want to eliminate or minimise that.
It must feel awful to be a royal correspondent, to dedicate your entire career to suck in establishment boot and then just to get kicked in the face like that, in a drive-by, my God.
But now her and Harry have moved to LA. They have been or have become part of the Hollywood aristocracy.
In order to enter the American aristocracy, which is made up of this kind of upper echelon of those who've reached the top of their fields.
And whatever you may think about it, they're going to be very marketable over there.
If you were hot, if you were rich, if you were media savvy, go, you know what, Hazza, let's just fuck this off.
And very likely to cash in. Just as his mother was and became a thorn in the side of royal protocol and was treated appallingly by our mainstream media until she died, which is at the heart of why it pisses off the media so much. And a lot of the general public who are suckered into buying or believing this criticism. As our media establishment feel it's their job to protect the mythologizing and the romanticism surrounding our hereditary monarchy, so that they can be the ones to tear them apart when they feel they have stepped out of line or not fulfilled their duty, which under this Queen's reign has been the mantra, duty before self, which of course is complete and utter bollocks, as the Queen is the biggest landowner in the country and her wealth is undisclosed. But it has served her well to give the impression that she serves the public as a duty to them, while our media establishment are there to fawn over all of the pageantry of it all. But Harry just doesn't want to play ball with them, and he's got reasons.
But it took them 2 hours to cut the princess out of the twisted wreckage. Despite massive internal bleeding, they initially managed to revive the princess and had brought her to the nearby Salpêtrière hospital, where she was undergoing surgery when she suffered a heart attack and died.
This is a man who believes the media killed his mother, and rightly so. He's expressed his frustrations and anger about the media on many occasions over the years.
I don't want to sit around at Windsor because I just generally don't like England that much, and it's nice to be away from all the press and the papers and the general shite that they write.
It's too risky for you to go back as a soldier.
More the fact that I think the media had said that they would never keep their mouths shut if I went and did the same job, so I'd have to do something different if I wanted to go, yes.
With the media following his every moment, Harry can't hide his irritation.
Harry, you enjoying getting stuck in? Not really with you guys.
So his decision to move with his wife to LA is perfectly logical, even if our mainstream media wishes to also make that somehow about her making him move, that terrible wife of his.
Is Prince Harry someone who sees everything as racist?
I think he's being encouraged to, yes. I think he's being encouraged to, yes.
Now, ultimately, no one should really care about this.
Definitely not the two people who I feel the most sympathy for at the moment, even if the people who they are angry against I kind of have even less sympathy for.
Or what's going on with these people's lives. Because the monarchy is outdated and antiquated. But As I've said before, it is part of the English condition to doff one's cap and to take this unequal position. It's baked in to the very fabric of this country. And our mainstream media are supposed to be the fifth column that represent us by holding them somewhat accountable. But they and their owners have become somewhat of a monolith in themselves, and ultimately are more interested in bargaining for their own power. Just as the Queen bargains her duty as service, they bargain the manufacturing of our interest as the public good. Now, I'm not too overly sympathetic about this pair and the apparent suffering they have endured personally at the hands of their family, because ultimately they're going to be okay, their lives will be fine, and the privilege will be maintained. But the fact she pisses these institutions off so much makes her okay in my books, as the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
All it does is just upset me and anger me that people can get away with writing the stuff they do. Not just about me, about everything and everybody.
And that mistrust of the press, I mean, how far back does that go? Is that something that's
I think it's fairly obvious how far back it goes to when I was very small.
Break it down!